From the studios of Atlantic Television Network in Port Harcourt, this is ATN International News. First, the headlines. Chile power outage plunges capital into darkness. Flash floods kill 21 members of 2 families in Afghanistan. Thailand bus overturns, killing at least 18. Over 20 killed after plane crashed in Khartoum. Trump to pay foreign aid funds before Wednesday. Swiss armed forces chief to step down. Ivory Coast Customs have seized around 2,000 metric tons of falsely declared cocoa beans worth around $19 million at its main port in Abidjan, 2 customs sources and 1 judicial source said on Tuesday. Cocoa, the main ingredient in chocolate, is usually smuggled over Ivory Coast's western border to Guinea and Liberia, where traffickers pay above the local farm gate price for the commodity. However, last week, Ivorian Customs discovered that a cocoa exporter had made a false declaration to pay less tax on the shipment at the port. They seized 110 containers that, according to the document, were supposed to contain rubber. A customs officer familiar with the case told reporters. To my knowledge, this is the first time we've made such a seizure. 2,000 tons, or around 15 million pounds, is a huge amount, another officer said. The tax on the shipment should have been 19.5%, including the 14.5% tax on cocoa exports and the 5% registration tax. In that case, the Ivorian state would have collected 2.9 million pounds in taxes. Meanwhile, the tax on rubber exports is only 1.5%. A source close to the judicial authorities said this fraud was possible due to the high level of corruption in the administration and the complicity of various departments. We seized this case and we are still investigating. We can't say anything at the moment, said the prosecutor close to the case. New report released Tuesday by an anti-transnational crime group has identified the core chemical components of Kush, a synthetic drug that has swept through Sierra Leone and the region in the past few years. The report by the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime conducted the first known testing of the most common varieties of Kush available in Sierra Leone and neighboring West African countries and found that it contained either nitazines or synthetic cannabinoids. Nitazines are potent and often deadly synthetic opioids that have spread rapidly across global retail drug markets, including European countries, particularly since 2022, the report reads. Illustratively, in 2023, in Estonia and Latvia, 48 and 28% of drug deaths, respectively, were attributable to nitazines. One of the nitazines detected in Kush is 25 times more potent than fentanyl. Sierra Leone's President Julius Maada Bio last year declared a war on Kush, calling it an epidemic and a national threat. He launched a task force on drug and substance abuse, promising to lead a government approach focused on prevention and treatment involving law enforcement and community engagement. There are persistent rumors about the ingredients in kush ranging from tramadol, a common pain reliever, to human bones. However, the report is careful to state the researchers uncovered no evidence of either while testing various samples. Since its introduction into the retail drug market of West Africa, kush has soared in popularity as deaths associated with it have also soared, according to the report. The synthetic opioids and cannabinoids with the drugs are highly addictive and have ravaged Sierra Leone in recent years. The drug has inspired local corruption, which has become endemic within some neighborhoods of Freetown, with cartels, the local name for kush smoking bars, sometimes popping up with meters of police stations, and the police tasking bar owners with community policing of their own patrons. As demand for the addictive components of kush has increased, the report describes how overdose rates have increased as a result of new recipes and increased usage. Egypt has firmly rejected proposals to forcibly displace the Palestinian people, arguing that such plans would liquidate the Palestinian cause and pose a threat to regional and national security. The Egyptian presidency issued a statement on Tuesday condemning U.S. President Donald Trump's controversial plan, which calls for permanently displacing more than 2 million Palestinians from Gaza, asserting U.S. control over the territory and transforming it into an international beach resort. In response, Egypt will host an emergency Arab League summit on March 4, focusing on countering Trump's proposal and rejecting calls for Egypt and Jordan to resettle displaced Palestinians. Both nations have cited serious national security concerns over any forced resettlement initiatives. Earlier this week, Arab leaders from Gulf states, Egypt and Jordan met in Riyadh to discuss these issues. Sources familiar with the meeting said the discussion centered on an Egyptian proposal that could potentially involve up to $20 billion in funding over 3 years from Gulf and Arab states, although no official confirmation has been provided. The proposal has sparked deep fears among Palestinians who worry it could echo the Nakba, the catastrophic displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians during the creation of the State of Israel in 1948. With regional tensions high, the upcoming summit aims to solidify a unified Arab response to safeguard Palestinian rights and regional stability. Police in Uganda are investigating the death of a Nigerian professional footballer who allegedly fell from a shopping mall in the capital, Kampala. Abubakar Lawal, 29 years, reportedly fell from a third-floor balcony at the Voice Mall shopping card, where he had gone to visit a Tanzanian friend. He was taken to hospital where he was pronounced dead, the police said. They said Lawal's friend, identified as Omari Neymar, had left him in her room, which is part of the mall building, preparing tea before the incident happened. Lawal was a striker playing for local team Vipers Sports Club, which has expressed its sadness for the untimely passing of our beloved player. Tributes have been flowing in for the Nigerian forward, formerly known as Man from Sokoto. He has been with Vipers since July 2022 after a 2-year SK Gali in Rwanda. Local media say the matter has left more questions than answers amid conflicting reports over the circumstances of Lawal's death. Some media initially reported that he had died in a motorcycle accident. As a result of such contrary information, Nigeria's authorities should probe the incident, a Nigerian international Ahmed Musa said on social media. UK authorities said Tuesday that they were punishing Rwanda over its alleged support of the rebels who now control 2 major cities in eastern Congo. The measures include posting direct financial aid that doesn't include support to the poorest Rwandans. The United Kingdom also will stop high-level attendance at events hosted by Rwanda's government, in addition to limiting trade promotion activities with the East African country. The Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office said in a statement. The UK government will also coordinate with the others on potential new sanctions designations. The statement said other measures include the suspension of future defense training, assistance, and a review of export licenses for the Rwandan army. It wasn't immediately clear how much the UK gives Rwanda in direct financial aid. The measures will pile pressure on Rwandan President Paul Kagame, who previously has been defiant over his country's efforts to secure its border with a largely lawless part of eastern Congo. Kagame faces growing charges of aggression in neighboring Congo. About 4,000 Rwandan troops are fighting alongside M23 rebels in eastern Congo, where the rebels now control the capitals of the provinces of North Kivu and South Kivu, according to a report by UN experts. M23 is the most powerful of the many armed groups vying for a foothold in Congo's east, a region possessing trillions of dollars in largely untapped mineral resources crucial for global technology. Sudanese military plane crashed on Tuesday on the outskirts of the capital, Khartoum, killing a number of officers and civilians, the army said, with pro-democracy activists saying at least 10 people were killed in a statement released late Tuesday. The Sudanese army, at war with the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces (RSF) since April 2023, said the plane crashed during takeoff from an air base, killing and injuring both military personnel and civilians. The injured have been taken to hospital, and firefighting teams managed to contain the blaze at the crash site. The statement added a military source had earlier told AFP that a technical malfunction was behind the crash of the Antonov aircraft. The crash took place near Wadi Sedna Air Base, one of the Army's largest military hubs in Omdurman, part of Greater Khartoum. The Karari Resistance Committee, part of a network of volunteers coordinating aid across Sudan, reported that 10 bodies and several injured people were brought to Al Now Hospital in Omdurman. Witnesses reported damage to several homes in the neighborhood where the plane came down. Residents in northern Omdurman reported a loud explosion from the crash, which also caused power outages in several surrounding neighborhoods. A witness said the plane was flying southbound from northern Sudan when it crashed near the base. The incident comes a day after the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces (RSF) claimed responsibility for downing a fighter jet in Nyala, the capital of South Darfur. In a statement sent to the media, the RSF said it shot down a Russian-made Yushin plane early on Monday morning, alleging that the plane was destroyed with its crew on board. The recent escalation follows significant advances by the army in central Sudan and the capital Khartoum in its multi-front offensive against the RSF. Since April 2023, Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and his former deputy and RSF commander Mohamed Hamadan Dagalo, once allies, have been locked in a brutal power struggle. The conflict, which has claimed tens of thousands of lives, erupted after a rift emerged between Burhan and Dagalo over the future structure of the government. The conflict has triggered one of the world's worst humanitarian disasters in recent memory, according to the United Nations. Unknown illness first discovered in 3 children who ate a bat has rapidly killed more than 50 people in northwestern Congo over the past 5 weeks, health experts say. The interval between the onset of symptoms, which include fever, vomiting, and internal bleeding, and death has been 48 hours in most cases, and that's what's really worrying, said Serge Ngalebato, medical director of Bikoro Hospital, a regional monitoring center. These hemorrhagic fever symptoms are commonly linked to known deadly viruses such as Ebola, dengue, Marburg, and yellow fever, but researchers have ruled these out based on tests of more than a dozen samples collected so far. The latest disease outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo began on January 21, with 419 cases recorded and 53 deaths. The outbreak began in the village of Boloko after 3 children ate a bat and died within 48 hours, the Africa office of the World Health Organization said on Monday. Gleason, also a former official at the U.S. Digital Service, served in the first Trump administration after Trump's January 20th inauguration. The Digital Service was renamed DOGE and is radically downsizing the federal government, including thousands of job cuts. After weeks of refusing to answer the question, the White House on Tuesday revealed the identity of the Department of Government Efficiency's acting administrator, a little-known former health care cutting program. Immigrants in the U.S. illegally who fail to register with the federal government could face significant fines, potential imprisonment, or both, according to a directive issued by the Department of Homeland Security on Tuesday. The Trump administration will enforce all our immigration laws. We will not pick and choose which laws we will enforce, a department spokesperson said. We must know who is in our country for the safety and security of our homeland and all Americans. All immigrants over the age of 14 who were not fingerprinted or registered when applying for a U.S. visa and who remain in the United States for 30 days or longer are required to register and be fingerprinted, according to the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services website, where immigrants can register. Once an immigrant has registered and had been fingerprinted, the Department of Homeland Security will issue evidence of registration, which must be carried by immigrants over the age of 18 at all times, according to the website. On his return to office last month, President Donald Trump declared illegal immigration at the Mexico border a national emergency and directed the department to ensure that immigrants register. The administration has sought to shut down the previous Biden administration's CBP, one which had allowed hundreds of thousands of migrants to enter the U.S. legally by scheduling an appointment on an app. U.S. Teachers Union on Tuesday sued a block a Trump administration policy that would withhold federal funds from schools that teach lessons about systemic racism and other so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion topics. The lawsuit filed in federal courts in Maryland by the American Federation of Teachers and the American Sociological Association asked the judge to declare the policy unconstitutional and bar federal officials from enforcing the directive, which was laid out in a February 14 U.S. Department of Education memo. The lawsuit is the latest legal challenge to executive orders by President Donald Trump seeking to end DEI programs in the federal government and the private sector. Trump and his Republican allies assert that DEI programs are anti-merit and discriminatory against white people and men. Right groups say they help uplift marginalized communities by addressing historic inequities. The new lawsuit said the U.S. Teachers Union on Tuesday sued to block a Trump administration policy that would withhold federal funds from schools that teach lessons about systemic racism and other so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion topics. The new lawsuit said the Education Department directive would hamper equal access to education and have devastating impacts on schools by denying students opportunities to hone their critical thinking skills and expand their view. This very vague and clearly unconstitutional memo is a grave attack on students, our profession, and knowledge itself. ATN President Randy Weingarten said in a statement, White House representatives did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Federal judge in Washington on Tuesday ordered the Trump administration to pay foreign aid funds to contractors and grant recipients by 11:59 p.m. on Wednesday night, saying there was no sign that it had taken any step to comply with his earlier order that the administration's freeze on the funds be lifted. U.S. District Judge Amir Ali's latest order came in a telephone hearing in a lawsuit by organizations that contract with and receive aid from the U.S. Agency for International Development and the State Department. It applies to work done before February 13, when the judge issued his earlier temporary restraining order. Despite that order, the organizations, which include International Development Company, DAI, Global and Refugee Assistance Organization, HIAS, say they have not been paid. Ali on Tuesday pressed a lawyer for the government, Indranil Saw, on whether the administration had taken any steps to comply with the order. Saw was not able to point to any. The White House and the State Department did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Tuesday marks the third time Ali, who was appointed by Trump's Democratic predecessor, Joe Biden, has ordered the administration officials to release foreign aid funds that were frozen after Republican President Donald Trump ordered a 90-day pause on all foreign aid, I beg your pardon. That order and ensuring stop work orders halting U.S. aid operations around the world have jeopardized the delivery of life-saving food and medical aid, throwing global humanitarian relief efforts into chaos. Several plaintiffs have said they will have to shut down completely if they are not paid soon. They allege that the administration has violated federal law and the U.S. Constitution by refusing to pay out the funds and by largely dismantling U.S. aid, which was established as an independent agency by Congress in 1998. U.S. aid on Sunday said that all of its staff workers would be put on paid administrative leave and that 1,600 positions in the United States would be eliminated. We'll go on a short break now, and when we return, we'll continue with the rest of our stories. Please stay with us. Massive power outage across Chile plunged the country's capital, Santiago, into darkness on Tuesday and knocked out electricity to major copper mines in the country's north, buffeting global metal markets. Hours after the outage began and as darkness fell, Chile's government announced a state of emergency and established a curfew from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. From the northern region of Africa to the southern region of Los Lagos. The widespread blackout was caused by a transmission line failure in the country's north. Interior Minister Carolina Tojar said, ruling out a cyber attack as a cause. Chile's largest power cut in years saw streetlights in the capital go dark, while sirens from emergency vehicles blared across the city, according to reporters. The Santiago Metro, which transports millions of passengers, was closed and passengers were evacuated from stalled trains. There's nothing, there's no cash, no money, nothing, said Jose Luis, who was eating in downtown Santiago when the outage hit. The Interior Ministry said it was deploying the armed forces across the country to help maintain order. As of 10 p.m., about a quarter of the electrical grid's demand was back online and power could be fully restored by morning, said Juan Carlos Olmedo, the board president of Chile's National Electricity Coordinator, CEN. Gangs launched a new attack on Haiti's capital early Tuesday, killing an unknown number of civilians in what used to be a peaceful neighborhood. The attack on Delmas 30 began before dawn, with gunfire echoing through the streets as people fled their homes in panic, some cradling babies or carrying elderly people on their back. The country is suffering, said 27-year-old Maurice Cedric Christian. He blamed the attack on the Vive and Sam gang coalition, which has claimed responsibility for other recent attacks. They don't want us to survive, Christian said. Local media reported that 2 Haitian soldiers were among the victims. Police and army spokespeople did not immediately return messages for comment. A man who declined to give his name recovered the body of a relative killed in the attack and placed it inside a wheelbarrow. In the past months, gang violence has left more than 6,000 people homeless in the Port-au-Prince metropolitan area, according to a UN statement issued Tuesday. Entire families were brutally wiped out in their homes, while others, including children and babies, were shot dead as they tried to escape. The UN said of the other attacks that occurred before Tuesday, last year, more than 5,600 people were reported killed across Haiti, with gang violence leaving more than 1 million homeless in recent years, according to the UN. United States won a ruling on Friday in a trade dispute with Mexico, which had sought to ban imports of genetically modified corn for human consumption. U.S. growers who had worried about the potential loss of the single biggest export market for U.S. corn welcomed the decision, calling it a major win. Mexico's department said it disagreed with the ruling by a panel of experts convened under the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Free Trade Agreement, known as the USMCA, but said it would abide by it. The Mexican government does not agree with the panel's finding, given that it considers that the measures in question are aligned with the principles of protecting public health and the rights of indigenous communities, Mexico's economy department said. Nonetheless, the Mexican government will respect the ruling. Mexico has been importing genetically modified corn from the U.S. for years, buying about $3 billion worth annually. The corn is mainly used to feed livestock in Mexico, but the country announced plans for a ban on human consumption in 2020, including a possible future ban on GM corn for livestock as well. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva dismissed Nícia Trindade as health minister, tapping Alexander Padilla for the job. a statement from the presidential palace said on Tuesday. Padilla, who is currently Lula's institutional relations minister, will be sworn in during a ceremony expected to take place on March 6, the statement added. The swap marks the second change in Lula's cabinet this year, replacing the presidential head of communications in January amid a dip in approval of the Lula administration. The change comes as Lula was also mulling the possibility of tapping the head of his Workers' Party, Gleisi Hoffmann, as Institutional Relations Minister, ATN reported on Monday, citing resources. At least 18 people were killed and 23 injured in eastern Thailand on Wednesday after the brakes failed on a tour bus and it rolled upside down into a ditch, police said. It was a downhill road and the brakes failed, and the driver lost control of the vehicle before it overturned, said Colonel Sofon Pranamani, adding that those who died were adults on a study trip. There were 49 people on the bus, all Thai, including the driver, the police official told ATN. Social media posts showed rescue and medical workers at the scene in Prachinburi province, east of the capital Bangkok, helping victims near the bus with its undercarriage exposed. Thai Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra expressed her condolences to the victims' families and said an investigation was taking place. If it is found that there is a violation of the use of vehicles that do not meet the standards or are involved in reckless use of vehicles, legal action will be taken, she said in a post on X. Inspection of vehicles must be safe and pass the specified standards before they are put into use to prevent accidents and reduce losses like this again, she said. Road accidents and fatalities are common in Thailand due to weak enforcement of vehicle safety standards and poorly maintained roads. The Southeast Asian nation ranked 9th out of 175 World Health Organization member countries for road traffic deaths, according to its 2023 report. Last year, a school bus caught fire due to a gas cylinder leak, killing 23 people, including 16 students. At least 4 construction workers were killed and 6 others injured when a highway overpass collapsed on Tuesday morning in South Korea, an official told ATN. 2 Chinese nationals are among those dead. 5 of those injured in the accident were seriously wounded in Cheonan, south of the capital Seoul, and officials from the Asian Fire Department told ATN. Broadcasters aired dashcam footage showing the towering deck of the overpass suddenly collapsing and slamming onto the road below. The massive road network is still being built and no passenger cars were around the construction site. Acting Interior and Safety Minister Ko King-dong urgently ordered relevant agencies, including the fire and police departments, to mobilize all available equipment and personnel, for rescue efforts while ensuring the safety of firefighters, according to the ministry's press release. Flash floods left at least 21 people dead and 4 injured in Afghanistan's western Farah province on Tuesday, the Interior Ministry said. The dead, who were swept away into a ravine, included several children. Ministry spokesman Abdul Matin was quoted as saying by reporters. They all belonged to 2 families who had set out for a picnic at Koja village in the Pushtok district, only to be caught in a sudden downpour and hailstorm while climbing a mountain. It was unclear if the bodies had been retrieved yet. Farah is known for its arid and rugged landscape. The region struggles with limited infrastructure and accessibility, which often hinders emergency response efforts, particularly during natural disasters like flash floods. Flash floods are a recurring disaster in Afghanistan. In 2024, the country faced a series of catastrophic floods that caused widespread destruction and devastating communities across multiple provinces. One of the worst disasters occurred in May when powerful flash floods swept through the province of Baglan, killing at least 315 people and leaving hundreds injured or missing. The floods also destroyed more than 2,000 homes, leaving dozens of families displaced and many unaccounted for. By July 2024, the United Nations reported that casualties from floods across the country had climbed by 58 and that there were 380 injured people. The floods had either damaged or completely destroyed 573 houses. Assessments revealed that at least 734 families were in urgent need of humanitarian aid. Church of England will seek to bring disciplinary proceedings against 10 clerics, including former Archbishop of Canterbury, George Carey, it said on Tuesday, implementing recommendations from an abuse report last year. The COE, central to 85 million Anglicans worldwide, has been in crisis over safeguarding the vulnerable since the November report, which said ex-leader Justin Welby had taken insufficient action to stop one of the church's most prolific serial abusers. Welby eventually stepped down over the findings. 8 priests and a former bishop were also listed among those potentially facing disciplinary action in the COE statement, as the COE concluded its own independent review into all clergy criticized in last year's report. That report found that the late John Smith, a British lawyer who volunteered at Christian summer camps, subjected more than 100 boys and young men to brutal and horrific physical and sexual abuse over a 40-year period. The potential outcomes of the COE's disciplinary process, which is at its first stage, could result in various penalties ranging from a permanent ban from ministry to resignation by consent. We must not forget that at the heart of this case are the survivors and victims who have endured the lifelong effects of the appalling abuse by John Smith. We are truly sorry. Alexander Kubeyinji, the COE's National Director of Safeguarding, said in the statement. Head of Switzerland's armed forces and the chief of the neutral country's intelligence services have both resigned their jobs, a Swiss lawmaker said on Monday, confirming media reports. Thomas Tuwelsili handed in his resignation as head of the armed forces at the end of January, public broadcaster SRF and newspaper reported, citing sources, although he would remain in office until the end of 2025. Christian Doucet, who heads the Federal Intelligence Service, has also resigned but will remain in office until the end of March 2026. The publications reported. Priska Seiler-Graf, the president of the Security Committee of the Lower Swiss House of Parliament, confirmed the departures. I do not see any connection between these two resignations as they work in different organizations, she told ATN. The Defense Department declined to comment. The departures come at a sensitive time for the Swiss defense establishment, which has come under fire for delays to keep project as it aims to build its capacities following the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Earlier this year, Swesley said he was concerned about the delays of various projects, including military drones from Israel. The Defense Department is also waiting for a new civilian head after Minister Viola Ahmed announced her resignation in January, with her successor in the Swiss cabinet still to be decided. That's the international news for today. I am Francis Necker. Thank you for watching. You can follow us on our social media platforms, X formerly Twitter, at Atlantic TV Net, Facebook and YouTube at Atlantic Television Network, Instagram at Atlantic TV Network. Watch us live on our website, atlanticnetwork.tv. Remember, peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Coming up next is business news. Please stay with us.